The studio was electric even before the red light blinked on to signal they were live, but when it did, the tension seemed to thicken until it was almost suffocating. Jasmine Crockett sat poised in her chair, her gaze locked firmly on Donald Trump, who was flanked by advisors pretending to look composed, but whose eyes betrayed the awareness that something dangerous was about to happen. The air hummed with the suppressed energy of millions watching from their living rooms, its offices, and even small cafes, their attention fixed on this political showdown. Trump leaned back with his characteristic smirk, the one he used when he thought he had the upper hand, but his fingers fidgeted against the desk, betraying an unspoken irritation that she was here at all. Jasmine, however, was calm in a way that suggested she had prepared for this moment for weeks, possibly months, holding back a weapon of truth, so potent it would pierce through the bravado and polished deflection he had built his public persona on. As the moderator asked about the recent tensions between Trump and his own inner circle, Jasmine let him talk first, letting him weave his usual tapestry of grandiose claims and half-formed accusations about fake news and witch hunts. The studio audience listened in polite silence, but the cameras caught their side eyes, the faint smirks from those who had grown weary of hearing the same tired refrains. When Trump finally paused for breath, Jasmine leaned forward, her voice steady, not raised, but imbued with that special kind of power that comes when you know the truth is bigger than the lies. "Mr. Trump," she began, every syllable carefully enunciated, "you've made a career out of telling the public one story about your marriage, about your image, about who you are behind closed doors. But the truth, the final truth is that you've been hiding a side of that relationship that the American people deserve to know." The audience stirred, a low ripple of whispers moving through the crowd. Trump's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing as if to measure how much she knew and how far she would dare to go. Jasmine didn't flinch. "Melania," she continued, "hasn't been your silent supportive partner in the way you've sold her to the public. She's been your most dangerous critic, your fiercest opponent in the one arena you never wanted exposed, your private life. And the reason is because she knows things about you, things that you've worked to bury so deep they would never see daylight until now." The air snapped like a live wire. Trump's face flushed, his fingers now gripping the desk so tightly the knuckles whitened, but before he could interject, Jasmine leaned in closer, her tone unrelenting, her words deliberate. "You've lied to the American people, not just about politics, not just about your business, but about your marriage itself. Because if they knew the reality, the image you've crafted would crumble in seconds. And tonight, on live television, I'm going to tell them exactly what she told me." Trump's jaw clenched so tightly that the tendons in his neck stood out under the bright studio lights, his eyes darting toward the moderator as if silently commanding them to intervene, to cut her off before she could continue. But the moderator, sensing the moment's magnitude and perhaps realizing the ratings gold this confrontation represented, remained still, his pen frozen above his notepad. Jasmine didn't rush. She let the silence sit between them like an anvil ready to drop, the kind of silence that forces the other person to break before you do. Somewhere in the audience, a camera phone clicked into place, its red recording light blinking, and the sound seemed to echo in Trump's ears as a reminder that this wasn't just a network broadcast, it would be immortalized across every corner of the internet within minutes. "You've built this myth," Jasmine said slowly, her eyes never leaving his, "that Melania is the perfect, loyal wife who believes in everything you do. But the truth, Mr. Trump, is that she has been quietly documenting every betrayal, every humiliation, every moment you crossed a line because she knew this day would come." The room shifted again, its murmurs rolling like low thunder as audience members leaned toward one another, their eyes wide with the shock of hearing the First Lady described not as a passive ornament, but as an active and calculating witness. Trump opened his mouth, perhaps to deny, perhaps to attack. But Jasmine lifted her hand slightly, an almost imperceptible gesture that seemed to command the space. She pressed on. "Melania didn't stay for the reasons you've given. In your speeches, she stayed because she wanted to watch you implode from the inside. She stayed because every time you stepped onto a stage and called her the love of your life, she wrote down what you had done to her the night before. Every time you bragged about being the protector of women, she remembered the names and faces of those you didn't protect. And when you claimed your marriage was unshakable, she smiled for the cameras and saved the proof that it wasn't. By now, the audience was utterly still, the kind of stillness that feels like the world has stopped holding its breath. The cameras zoomed in on Trump's face, catching the twitch in his jaw, the way his lower lip trembled just enough to betray the storm brewing beneath. "And here's the part you feared the most," Jasmine said, her tone sharpening like a blade finding its edge. "She gave it all to me." There it was, the detonator. Trump's chair scraped against the studio floor as he leaned forward, his voice low but shaking with fury. "That's a lie." But the words came too late. Jasmine had shifted in her seat, one hand reaching toward a sleek black folder resting beside her on the desk, the other gesturing toward the cameras as if inviting the entire nation to lean closer. "No, Mr. Trump," she replied, her voice cold and unwavering. "This is the truth you can't spin away. The truth about you. The truth about her. The truth that ends the story you've been selling for years." Trump's hand shot out across the table in a sudden, almost frantic motion, his fingertips grazing the edge of the black folder as if he could snatch it away before it reached the public eye. But Jasmine was faster, sliding it just out of his reach with a calm, almost surgical precision that only made him look more desperate. The audience gasped, not just at the movement, but at what it revealed about his state of mind. This wasn't the calculated, self-assured showman they were used to seeing. This was a man cornered, his composure cracking, the facade beginning to collapse in real time under the heat of truth. "Put that down," Trump hissed, his voice low and sharp, meant for her ears alone. But the microphones caught every syllable and carried them into living rooms across the country. Jasmine leaned back, her hand resting protectively on the folder, as though it were a piece of evidence in a trial, which in a way it was. "You don't get to tell me what to do here," she said, the ice in her tone making the words hit harder than if she'd shouted them. "You've told your version long enough. Tonight the truth gets its turn." Why did somewhere behind Trump? One of his aides shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the cameras and their boss, clearly calculating the damage this would cause if she followed through. Trump turned his head slightly, giving them a quick glare that was equal parts warning and plea. But there was nothing they could do. This wasn't a private meeting they could end. It was live television, and the world was watching. "You think people care about your little games?" Trump barked, trying to regain control of the narrative. But his words lacked their usual punch, sounding more like the outbursts of a man scrambling to plug holes in a sinking ship. Jasmine didn't flinch. She slowly opened the folder, the faint sound of paper shifting amplified by the sheer silence of the room, and drew out a stack of neatly bound documents. "These," she said, lifting them for the cameras, "are letters, emails, photographs, and recorded conversations, every single one given to me by Melania and Trump herself. And in them, she doesn't just describe her life with you, she exposes the truths you've worked your whole life to hide." The cameras caught Trump's eyes widening, his face draining of color before turning an angry shade of red, the way a storm cloud bruises the sky before lightning strikes. "This is fake, it's all fake," shouted, his voice cracking just enough to betray the fear lacing every word. But Jasmine didn't stop. She flipped to the first page, holding it close to her face so she could read word for word, her voice resonating with the kind of clarity that cut through lies like glass through silk. "Donald is not the man he pretends to be in public," she began, quoting from one of Melania's handwritten letters. "He is not faithful. He is not honest. And he is not in love with me. He is in love with the idea of me. I stayed. Not because I was loyal, but because I knew someday the truth would be my revenge." The gasp from the audience was immediate and visceral, a collective exhale of disbelief and vindication. Trump slammed his palm on the table, the sound reverberating through the studio. But it only underscored the spectacle: a man unraveling live, and a woman who refused to be intimidated by it. Jasmine looked up from the page, her eyes locking on his unblinking, unwavering. "This isn't my opinion, Mr. Trump," she said. "This is your wife's."